to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Jimmy Barada, Jeff Cohen, Jimmy Mondel, William Collis. For those of you who are new to the live stream, welcome. What we do here is we cover all the news, all the topics, all the stuff that didn't make it into the podcast. More and more, this is becoming the weekly news show, and more the.
This is.
We are in uncharted territory right now.
We're free.
No, I'm kidding. How gracious host.
Anarchy. Moment.
I don't know what happened there.
Go away, Paul. We were ready to like the inmates ready to run the asylum. Like
Kids without mom and dad at home.
The best part about the live stream, guys, we get to do it with you live. So we encourage you. You can lurk if you want, but we encourage you to get involved, ask questions, get in our faces. We are here to discuss the news of the week, but also to discuss the topics and things that you guys want to get into.
Can I do like a quick appeal? Actually, like if you listen to the live stream, you're here right now, and you've never typed anything in the chat. Like, please just type hi. We'll call it out. We'll shout you guys out. But I know there are so many people who lurk, and it's so great for us. And once you make the first comment, it's so much easier to make the second comment and then the third. And the whole reason we do this live is to interact with you. So reach out, say hello, and, get us talking about what you're interested in, because that's why we're here and not just pre-recording this.
Robert says that's an immediate disconnect. Robert, I apologize. I don't know what happened. The good news is I came back fast. So, guys, we got so much to talk about this week. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah,
pretty good.
I beat Streets of Rage 4. That was pretty good highlight of my week. So not that hard to beat, Jimmy. It's like an hour, but it was awesome.
Right. It seems like a fun game though.
Really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been good. Just been hanging out, playing games, working. The weather's been kind of gloomy lately, kind of humid and rainy. Not been great in New York, so that's been kind of whack, but good otherwise.
It's like a jungle.
Yeah, serious soup outside, honestly.
Christian says you need to create a lurk emote. This is true. Probably when we start broadcasting this on Twitch, which I suspect we will. At some point, I actually just want to change the software that we use, and that will probably be the impetus to get us on Twitch. So it will happen. It's coming. I would just sit tight, but it's a good idea, Christian. Guys, we have a lot to talk about, so I want to jump into it. Let me just tease the podcast that you guys can expect tomorrow. We had Nick Gross on the podcast, amazing guest. Came from the music business. He's the founder of something called Gross Labs. He's also one of the owners of Rect Global, which owns Rogue and a bunch of other esports teams. So has his hands in music, has his hands in gaming. And I always find it fascinating to see these music guys, because he's a music guy first and foremost, get into gaming because first of all, they're always the coolest people in the room, which I find fascinating. Like, if from the music business, All these people seem to be the coolest people in the room. And then I'm always fascinated how they look at the gaming environment and how gaming and music intersect. And I think for those of you who listened to the Clinton Sparks episode, it's probably a fascinating study to see how Clinton looks at music and gaming together versus like tomorrow. You guys will be able to listen to how Nick Gross looks at music and gaming together. So
I'd also say don't forget that besides just for the podcast, that you can also, we have video recording, and Nick's backdrop is really cool, like the wall behind him, the RGB. I just wanted to say, like, I didn't even know that that our recording actually had video to it until I came in and started contributing, and I wish I knew that beforehand because it's fun to watch, So I just wanted to share that. Sorry to cut you off, Paul.
No, it's great. If one of you can check. Bodrick said it's not working on LinkedIn.
Greg said it is.
Greg says it's on LinkedIn now. So if LinkedIn's still not working for some of you, just let us know. But hopefully it will. I can push also. Jimmy sent me this link, which is it's just some background information on Rogue and the round they raised recently. So. So that's the episode you can expect tomorrow. Oh, sorry, I will also tease. We did cover 2 news stories that were very much related to Nick and some of the things he was doing. The first was Tribe Gaming and Razer launching a $10,000 scholarship program. And what's interesting is because Nick has an entire company that's doing stuff with education where there's some gaming involved, but a really kind of interesting take on education called Find Your Grind. Which was fascinating. And so we talked about this particular effort from Tribe and Razer. And we also covered Grand Theft Auto remastering games. So in particular, the rumor is they're going to be remastering GTA 3, GTA Vice City, and GTA San Andreas. And the question I asked him, and you guys will have to tune in tomorrow to hear his answer, but the question I asked him was very much related to, in the music business, when someone has a hit and then doesn't have a hit for like 10 or 15 years and then re-releases the hit, like, does that mean essentially that they're washed up if they're at the point where they're re-releasing hits? And does that translate to the gaming world, right? Like, is Rockstar washed up at this point when the only thing we've seen from them in the last 10 years from a GTA standpoint is now potential remasters?
Well, you're missing the real highlight of the episode, which is I quoted Goldfinger lyrics by the band Superman, because Nick is also the drummer for, I think he was, I don't know if he still is drummer, but I think he was at one point the drummer for Superman. So just if you want to see my, shocking fluency in alt pop punk lyrics, like, brace yourself.
Ramsey says, so no one is making new games anymore. Ramsey, this is my view.
Well, actually, like, quite seriously,
this is my view.
We didn't get the time to really go all the way into it, but do we want to talk about it for 2 or 3 more minutes here?
Sure.
And just because
Who's making new games?
Yeah, well, apparently indie studios.
Well, I'm also kind of excited for the remasters of GTA because honestly, the GTA 5 game has been out for so damn long, it literally spans generations. So there's generations of kids growing up on GTA 5 who have never experienced Vice City, San Andreas.
This is the point that we discussed on the podcast. What 16-year-old kid, right, who plays GTA 5 with its modern graphics and mostly modern engine, well, I mean, as modern as GTA gets, why would you go back and play an old, ugly game?
But they're remastering.
Isn't that the whole point of remastering?
Remastering doesn't.
But
make
I think
it look
I
brand new.
I will say that there's probably a large portion of the GTA community that is one either stuck online and playing a lot of that, but I think there's a lot of people that just play GTA just to.
The only people I see buying this
Yeah.
are like the people who are nostalgic for old GTA.
So
still a large audience though.
Still a
lot
of
people. Still a large audience.
Paul, you are
yeah.
You are
Go for it,
often so right. Like, I just can't disagree with you more on this. I think First of all, like, it depends on, again, there's a question of corporate resourcing that you raise in the podcast that I think is the fair criticism of this. It's to say, because we did a remaster, we didn't do GTA 6. Then there's probably a problem. But if this is managed the way it should be managed, which is we have a backlog of games, we have a separate team that we can create that can update them. The team is its own profit center and generates more revenue than cost. And it keeps the old IP, the old characters, the old stories fresh, and applicable to a new generation. So people know that San Andreas means something and has a story in the GTA 5 in the GTA universe.
I imagine the cost.
Right? No, keep going.
I imagine the cost of remastering GTA 3 versus creating GTA 6 is literally 2%. It's not even. We're not even talking about the same remote scale of project. So I don't think this is, hey, we chose to do this versus that, because it's just, they're two different projects. And particularly with the way Rockstar works, these are, to use William's word, auteurs, right? When they're creating a new game, there is a massive 1,000-page story that has to be written. Whereas when you're remastering something, there's no new creativity, which I think that's what's bothering you, Paul, as a gamer. And I don't disagree with that as a gamer, but as a business, I don't view this as one or the other. And I highly doubt that that's the way Take-Two or Rockstar views it either.
Look, you could make the argument that in isolation, this remastering of GTA 3 or GTA Vice City or whatever will be profitable. We're going to spend X, we're going to make Y. It will be profitable in isolation. I just think from a capital allocation standpoint, right? I think you can make the return on investment, putting that additional capital into GTA 6, the ROI there is the potential ROI there is way higher than in a remaster. So I think from a capital allocation standpoint, this is suboptimal.
Well, you're probably right, but that doesn't mean, but to William's point, why don't you think they're both? I think both projects are happening.
Yeah, and also guys, just I want to make an analogy I think is really clever. I'm going to say in advance, I think the way to think about this is because you're right, it's portfolio theory that you should be applying here. The way to think about this is like you have an investment portfolio. What do you have in your investment portfolio? You have some equity, right, which is higher risk, higher return, and you have some bonds, which are lower risk and lower return. And an optimal investment portfolio has a mix of these, right? And I think that's sort of what's going on here, because remaking these games, yes, there is no way a re-release of GTA 3 or 1 or anything will ever be as successful as a GTA 6. But it's a lot lower risk. There's a built-in audience. The story. You already know it's proven time, honored and, battle worn, right? It helped build the Rockstar brand. It's a lower risk, lower return play. And I do think good studios should be doing both, just like good investment portfolios have some stocks and some bonds.
William using his 1970s investment portfolio theory. It's 2021, bro. Meme stocks and Bitcoin.
I could use the same analogy and come to a different conclusion, right? Rockstar's a venture capital fund. I'd rather they allocate their capital to big payoff kind of investments. If all of a sudden tomorrow Sequoia started buying bonds, I'm going, well, Sequoia's time as an investor is probably up. Right?
Good point. Good point. That's actually a really good counter.
I think Rockstar's time as one of the greatest developers of new IP of all time, this is one of those red flags that I guarantee you 5 years from now, we're all going to go back and say, you know what? Remember on that live stream, we said this didn't smell right. Right?
I'm not too sure. I think maybe they've recognized that it will be a couple more years till they can get GTA 6 out, just because they had to port over GTA 5 to new generations and such. So I'm thinking, in an optimal world, what if they're using this to satiate the audience for a little bit longer, for a couple extra years until they can hit what they want with GTA 6.
It's a good point, Jimmy. It's a good point. I just don't think it satiates the audience, right? Me, who's waiting for GTA 6, I have zero desire to go back and play GTA 3 while I'm waiting for GTA 6.
Vice City and San Andreas.
There's only two people who are going to buy this game. People who are massively nostalgic for anything GTA, or parents of kids who just mistakenly think this is a new GTA game. It's literally bought it by mistake. To me, these are the two groups of people.
But Paul, here's my question. Well, you can do the.
Let me just read and then. Robert says GTA Metaverse. This is what we are saying a few weeks ago. GTA Online will now grow. Washed up. GTA Online was one of the most popular stream game last month. Robert, no one's debating that GTA 5 is not still massively profitable and relevant. It's just I would have thought Rockstar would have learned from what they saw happen at Activision Blizzard, because Activision Blizzard went down this exact path, and it's not panning out for Activision Blizzard, right? When you start down this path, there's really only one place you end up, I think. And so, yes, today GTA Online is very healthy, the same way WoW was very healthy 5-10 years ago. But if you stop making new games, I think you only end up in one place. I predict GTA Remastered will be add-on accessible maps from GTA Online, and once the hype from the re-release dies down, GTA 6 will be another add-on map, and they'll find a way to combine them all into a massive playable environment. I mean, that is the case for the sort of the pure online service, one GTA to rule them all, I guess, right?
That would be cool. The question I had for you, Paul, is you mentioned that Rockstar, should be looking at this as a VC fund, but the way I view it is Rockstar, particularly with Take-Two, is basically run like a PE fund, given Strauss's background and Zelnick Media's, being a PE fund. Like, why don't you assume that Rockstar should be run like a PE fund versus
I'll tell
VC
you why.
fund?
Because what is the closest analogy to games? And how games
Media?
Like
I don't know.
movies or Broadway shows, right? They're hit. It's a hit-driven business.
And what does every movie move towards? Sequels.
No, but my point is, in a
blockbusters.
hit-driven business, right? You want to maximize the massive home runs. You want to be swinging for the fences on every one, because
but what has been the number one trend defining movies recently? It's been, I'm totally blanking on the guy's name. The guy who did Lost. What's his name? What? No, the guy who did.
I said The Rock.
Like,
he is the number one trend in movies. Let's be honest.
No. It's Rock. Fine, yeah, sure. But it's been new Star. Hey guys, Star Trek. We're rebooting Star Trek. Hey guys, we're gonna reboot. Indiana Jones. Hey guys, it's the analogy to
those
this.
worked out well.
Well, but that's the analogy to the remastered, right? And sure, maybe I could come up with better examples, but the analogy is, let's take, Star Trek, I think, is the really applicable thing here, where they literally do similar plots to old movies for a new generation. But the intent is, we have characters that people love. We have proven time-worn stories. We have a high-risk medium that we want to de-risk. So let's leverage the content vault. I think it's smart.
So here, I have a question for Paul and for anyone in the panel. So it seems like, we've talked about Activision Blizzard going down this path, seemingly the wrong way. Paul, that's been your opinion for a while. Now, Take-Two, same thing. You're saying Rockstar's lost their way. EA, arguably, everyone hates them. They haven't had, that many new exciting games in a while, albeit a couple of successes, but no one's going to call them the most innovative new studio. So who is doing this right? Like, what is the future of gaming? If it doesn't seem like anyone is developing anything new, is that a problem? And who do we look to?
Yeah, but meaning, like, if you never go down this path, you never get an Apex.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's the same thing I was going to bring up. Right?
And to me, if between those three, and I never thought there'd be a universe where I'd hear myself saying this, between those three, EA's maybe doing it the best. Right? And that's scary to hear myself say that, but that is kind of the current reality. Now, indie studios that swing for the fences, I think that, Amazon with New World, I think you're going to see a big, a huge.
Never would I thought Amazon would be represented as the future of gaming, but
and they are so happy right now.
If they make an effort to make new games, right? It comes down to who's going to make an effort to create new IP, new experiences, next level kinds of immersion, or next level kind of gameplay, who's doing this?
I think
those are the people I would bet on.
That was my question to you guys.
But I think you're being very fair weather. First of all, like, you're just taking one of the biggest games that's coming, like the proven success, right? And most games don't succeed, right? And you're saying this was a big hit. EA is doing it really well because Apex is a wonderful game. And look, there's been tons of new content pushed out with big risks taken by pretty much every major studio, right? And you guys are going to laugh at me. You're going to tell me to get out of the room. But I even put something like Diablo Immortal, which I know is memeable and people don't like, but like, you
Completely
guys
disagree.
Yeah, like
We've all got a phone, right?
Beat me up all you want, but like, isn't it exciting to see? Like, fundamentally, isn't it exciting to see the Diablo IP on mobile? And I know that's not what you want, and that's not what you're talking about. But look at like, there have been plenty of big titles that have launched from major studios. They all haven't been successes like Apex, but that's why people are scared to do big new titles, because they're high risk, high return, and by their nature, only a few of them stand the test of the time and become the mega hits.
But that's exactly the point. This is why it's like the venture business.
And that's why I mean, like, there are some companies that you can identify, right, that have hits. And so I think even with Apex, you had the precursor of Titanfall 1 and 2, right? You identified that there was something in the movement and the mechanics in those games. And even though they didn't sell, they were like, hey, we've got something here. People are latching onto this. How do we now develop this for the future? And so when you take these sorts of risks, you can take the risks with the future in mind, being like, okay, we're going to use this as a sort of pilot project. And so I think, an example of companies doing it well, EA and Titanfall into Apex, companies doing it not so well, maybe even Amazon with that 6v6 competitive shooter that they had come out and then went back into beta. They were like, forget this. I'm sorry. We'll be back in like 3 years. That was a shit show. It didn't work out. They didn't really learn anything from that, I believe. And I don't think that's an IP that we're going to see come back in any way, sort or form. But I think, right, like, it's hard to tell while it's happening, because even Titanfall 1 and 2 were very low key. There was no sorts of huge advertising for it, and his player base wasn't massive, but mechanically they had figured something out. So it's really hard to tell, to Paul's point.
Gaming's a hit-driven business. It's not winner take all, but it's winner takes most, and so you match the business model and the investment model to the nature of the business. Like, to me, that's the reality here. And so companies that aren't swinging for the fences, to me, have almost no chance of success long term. And actually, guys, this is a great segue. Let me use this as a segue into the first article here, because I think it is relevant. And this is the headline here is Among Us devs aren't feeling Fortnite's new imposters mode. So basically, Fortnite has released a mode that basically just replicates the Among Us gameplay. So everything that Among Us does, you can do it in Fortnite.
That's all that Fortnite was, right? Like a replica of other games, just better.
But let me just make my point here, which is, Fortnite was a swing for the fences in a big way. I think it succeeded, and it is a winner take most market, right? So they have a dominant position in the marketplace. You try and make a game like Among Us, it may have its moment in the sun, it may have a moment of popularity, but it's not going to set the world on fire, because it's not that ambitious and it's not a swing for the fences. And worst case scenario, the big platforms just copy you, right? Like,
that's the thing. I don't even think
isn't this kind of exactly why companies are doing what we just talked about?
But
like, they're not innovating.
My argument for why you need to swing for the fences. You want to be the winner take most. You don't want to be the middle of the road success that gets either replaced or copied or.
I sort of see this as the exact opposite, where it's, hey, stay entrenched, keep your users, build a platform, and then sort of like add on different features that other games.
But you have to take the big chance first.
But isn't the argument here that
not if you have your player base?
Among Us swung for the fences, right? They had their moment in the spotlight, and what happened? They're getting ripped off now. That's what I see in this.
That's
right.
That's how I swing for the fences with Among Us. It's like a
it's a new IP, new.
I guess what
mechanic.
I'm saying. It's a new game. Fortnite itself wasn't a swing for the fences, because they built it as a save the world story-driven game, and then copied PUBG and DayZ because it was very, very easy to do, and they were like, let me just add this mode in and see what happens, and slowly but surely it like ticked up. So I believe, it wasn't really a swing for the fences from Among Us either. It was like a super small dev team.
Can we just take a step back, Paul? I'm curious, and I think I might know the answer to this, but is your qualm more as a gamer, you want to see more innovative, exciting new IPs, good games as a gamer, or as a business person, you think Activision should be spending their capital, building 15 new games? Because it's almost like
both.
It almost, to me, it feels like the market has already spoken on that. And maybe it's short-sighted. You could argue that the market, long-term, they are going to destroy value. But the reason why these stocks have done so well, and like the whole big bull case and pitch for investors in the industry is that these things have moved from being hit driven to being sort of like SaaS like recurring revenue models, and you just have these massive IPs that have all the eyeballs, have such big network effects. Like that's kind of like what every investor loves about the gaming space. So I think moving backwards would be a short-term pain. You may be arguing long-term that's what they need to do to sort of like cannibalize themselves and sort of be relevant 10, 15 years from now. But short-term, that would be very painful.
What you're describing is a very standard life cycle of any innovation-driven industry, right? You see big innovation, then people sort of figure out the business model, and then everyone sort of hunkers down and figures out how to optimize that business model, right, to maximum profit. And then they all get complacent. No new innovation happens until they get completely disrupted by some startup, and the cycle starts over again, right? And what we're seeing is this come in like ages. What we're seeing is they're getting fat and lazy period, and disruption will come. Like to me, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yeah, it's the same thing with how we saw battle royales even get popular. Like they weren't a thing for many years, and then 2012, 13, 14, DayZ, PUBG, all those start coming out and slowly start ticking it up, and then we see everybody's making a battle royale mode after that. So who's going to be the next DayZ in the grand scheme of things? You know, like who's going to be the next? I mean, before battle royales, it was MMOs, right? That was like the age of what was happening there. So what's going to be the next?
So is not the lesson from the battle royale era, the battle royale, if you will, was that you don't have to be first? You literally can be you should be the fast follow.
It's not.
So aren't these companies doing the right? If you're thinking game theory, shouldn't Activision Blizzard sit back and say, why would I take the risk and try to create the new genre, the new whatever? I could just be the second, the third guy in and sort of take over, because that's what we did in battle royale. Now it didn't really work in MOBA, so you know.
No one like if Fortnite didn't exist, right? If Save the World, if not one line of code had been written, okay, and the people at Epic saw PUBG and said, "Oh, this is cool. Like, let's go make a copy of this," right? You're talking like 4 years of development, right? You're a really slow follower. But it just so happened they had a platform and an engine that they could tweak to make it work, and right, like you're talking about a lot of positive.
So maybe the answer is optimize your company so that you are able to do that. You have
isn't that a whole business strategy, the fast follower strategy, like building a business so you copy other successful business models quickly? Like that's been, for example, the trend in the fashion industry.
Even with Activision, we've seen the fast follower trend fail them miserably with Black Ops 4 per se, right? They did the first thing where they added class-based abilities in the game, and it was not taken to by the community at all. It did the lowest sales of any Call of Duty game for a reason. People were like, this is Overwatch, but shittier. Why would I play this? And so there's a huge risk that they took in developing Warzone. It's the first time Call of Duty ever goes free to play as well. So I think the success that you see replicated with Warzone and Battle Royale will never happen again for Activision, because you've already done the big thing in making Call of Duty free to play. You can never do that again. You don't have another IP that's as strong, and that's never going to make as big of a splash. So no matter what game you make moving forward, you have to nail it, because if you get another Black Ops 4 situation, no one's going to play your game. And if Warzone is all you got for the next 5 years, you're kind of screwed. So I think like luckily, they got Warzone correctly, I believe. And luckily, they rode that wave of free-to-play. I don't know if it's replicable moving forward into the next thing, mentioning waiting for a prime time to strike.
Fast follower is a legitimate business strategy, but not in an industry where it takes 4 to 10 years to make a game, right? Like, you're not following very fast in that scenario. Now, could you optimize these businesses to do it? Yeah. But I haven't seen any evidence that says that's the strategy that works in gaming. I mean, William, you're not going to like this, but look at Heroes of the Storm. I mean, you could argue this was a fast follower that 100%. Was maybe one of the biggest flops of all time, right?
Okay, Paul. Okay. Take off
X-Defiant.
Take off the boxing gloves, just go straight for the face.
Mommy and Daddy are fighting
look,
tonight.
I know it may be a lovely game. It's not my point. It's anyways, it's an interesting.
I think Christian made a good point here. We want to
let me read these and then I want to ask you guys a question specifically. So Matt says, Among Us is still relevant. It's not just a meme at this point. it is sort of just a meme at this point.
Oh, I want to interject real quick. I did
Yeah.
a piece of man on the street content this past week. We went up to a very elderly woman. She was probably 90 years old, and I said, so what games are you playing?" And she was like, "Well, I don't really play games, but my grandkids installed these on my phone." And she showed me Among Us and Roblox. I was like, "Why do you have this on your phone?" She was like, "Yeah, sometimes I just sit down and play with them." And I was like, "What? There's a 90-year-old woman playing Roblox." So there's a potential you're just matchmaking with her.
Single-handedly skewing the age curve. They're like, our average age is actually 20, because we have one 200-year-old woman in New York.
Matthew says, "Leave it to Fortnite to take your thing and do it better than you." I mean, they are pretty good at that. Christian says, "Fortnite is now a distribution channel like TV, Twitch, etc., which attracts IP like Among Us to market to that audience to stay relevant." True. I think everyone here probably agrees with that, right? That it's a platform, it's a distribution channel, much more than a game. Christian says, "Along those lines, could we see Epic launch new IP through Fortnite and then spin it off if successful?"
Fortnite Battle Royale.
That would be smart.
I mean, the question is are they better off doing that or just trying to make Fortnite this massive, conglomerate of all kinds of
to Christian's point, Fortnite has a lot of LTMs when they do these collabs, like with Jordan and Stranger Things, Batman. I think a lot of those would be fun standalone in the Steam store or Epic store, I guess here. But I think a lot of those would be fun spin-off projects. I think that there's probably a licensing issue where they have limited rights, right, and limited access to that IP, and that's the true issue, at least for what we've seen in the past. Anything in the future, as far as an LTM and spinoff, would have to be a wholly owned Epic property. There's probably some legal issues there, which are why they don't pursue it further.
Can we come back to this article, guys? If you're the Among Us devs, what can they do at this point? Anyone have thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's anything you can do. They've had a lot of success, you can try innovating
Jimmy's
your game.
official legal opinion.
So I like to compare it to, I'm going to take it out of video games for a second, compare it to social media, right? Snapchat came out, disappearing 24-hour shareable posts. Instagram copied it with the 24-hour feed, right? Instagram completely ripped it off. What did Snapchat do to stay relevant? I'm not really sure. They added a games component. It's still, the stock looks pretty great. I'm not a user of it, but what can you do when someone rips you off?
And then 4 years later, Twitter did the same thing.
So could Among Us move younger and more casual?
I thought that
maybe?
was funny.
They could add a story.
I get it. That was a jab against Twitter.
I
just got that. Yeah, that was great.
I got it.
I was hoping for some laughter.
Oh, you have the soundboard.
Could Among Us go younger and more casual? Maybe I don't know. What's the
they
play?
could do a Coco Melon collab, I think. Yeah, that's a kids show on Netflix.
Based on the
for toddlers.
Based on my
2-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yes, the guys about murder and lying. We should be murder and deceit. This is the right content for toddlers.
I don't know, guys. I think that the bigger interesting question of this is are the games themselves really not about one mode of gameplay but platforms? And this is the Robloxification, right, of the industry, right? And I sort of hate to say that because Roblox maybe isn't the best example, but it's this idea of, you could have called it maybe the Skyrimification, or, we've been going through this for forever in the industry, but basically the idea that we're going to give you not just a game, but a set of tools, and the tools can make other things. And this is just a question of who's using the tools. Is it the community? Or in this case, it's the devs themselves using their tools that they have to create a new gameplay mirror. But I think it's interesting because I want more games to have more varied experiences within them, right? What's your favorite part of any role-playing game, Jimmy? The random mini game that you have to grind to get access to the best end game spells and gear. You know what I mean? It's fun to have variety in our games and to have different. And I think that I'm hoping that this is a larger, leaving aside the difficulties in this current space and what's going on here, I'm hoping the larger trend is that games themselves become more multi-home for content types.
Matt says, as always, great show, everybody. Thank you,
Best one yet, I think.
Let's talk about Roblox. You guys mentioned Roblox. Let's stay on this platform theme. Okay. This news: Roblox acquires Guilded, a platform to connect gaming communities. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me just actually, this is the best way I can explain it. Guilded is basically like a knockoff Discord with some different features. Obviously, not as fully featured as Discord, but some things it did better were like shared calendars. So for guilds that raided together, things like that. Like it's something that you see in WoW a bit, people use. And so Roblox is buying this platform that is something like a social network, but basically like a Discord clone. Anyone have thoughts on where Roblox is going with this? Because I would argue Guilded was maybe targeted at an older audience, right? It was definitely not the Minecraft, Fortnite, or like typical, at least stereotypical Roblox kind of demographic on there. I don't think. Is this a nothing acquisition, Jeff, in your mind, or is it significant?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I wonder, I'm curious, do you think this was to try to gain access to the audience that Guilded has, or to get that tool and that technology that they'll then integrate into Roblox? Because clearly Roblox is a social game. They're trying to build a metaverse. It makes sense that you're going to need these sort of social tools like a Discord type platform. So it might have just been a piece of technology that they're gonna integrate there. So
I'd lean towards the latter, honestly, personally. Like it seems like it doesn't make sense. I personally had never heard of anybody that had used this service before, so I wouldn't be of the notion to believe that it's because of their user base, but I think they probably figured out a great way to group people that were into similar things or into similar raids, into similar Roblox worlds, whatever it may be. Maybe the parameters or like the way the search engine is built out is the tech that they're after. That's what I believe that they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, they say they wanted to get voice chat, video chat, integrated calendars, scheduling tools, and I assume all those things will be integrated into Roblox. It's an interesting development, right? Because it doesn't seem like they're buying users. It doesn't seem like they're buying games. This is really like nuts and bolts tech and tools. Again, is Roblox sort of leading the way from a metaverse platform kind of standpoint?
I mean, at the end of the day, that is what Roblox is, right? Is a tool set and a platform for, it wouldn't make sense for them to buy games because all the games, as I understand, are user generated. So this is exactly the kind of acquisition that you would think a platform, which is basically a toolbox for creators, a sandbox for people, would do. Everyone knows the metaverse is going to need a good integrated calendar. When I think metaverse, that's easily one of the main criteria that I believe is going to be a core pillar of the metaverse. A calendar. Good integrated calendar.
With on-screen alerts. No, but really, I think like
did the calendar get juiced? Is that
yes. Calendar got juiced.
I mean, I think like since everyone playing Roblox is probably on Discord or some sort of voice chat anyways, it just makes sense. Like, why not keep it all in the ecosystem? So I think it makes sense on multiple levels, but I don't know what in particular they would have created that Roblox would have wanted to purchase and why they wouldn't have gone with maybe some sort of in-house integration for building a voice chat. Like that's what I'm really curious to.
Yeah, and I'll just extend that point, Jimmy, which is like, I'm always a little hesitant because I think Discord has built such a sticky kind of user base that, I mean, when was the last time, other than if you're like solo queuing Valorant and you absolutely need to chat with randoms, right? Like when's the last time anyone has ever used in-game voice chat or like, I can't even think of the last time I did, right? Like Discord has been so dominant in the last at least 5 years.
I think that's something that was also different for younger kids who are probably not always with their own friends and probably more open to speaking with random other young kids on the internet, which is, definitely a security thing that probably warrants some, thinking about. But I think the younger generation is more open to speaking to random strangers on the internet, which is fun. But yeah, like VR chat and all the rest, like super popular. And I think, for the same reason this would be used. But I think that's just like a generational divide.
So our next story, guys, this is going to be my tinfoil hat story because I have a theory here, and you guys are going to laugh. But the headline here is Phil Spencer has a Steam Deck and says Xbox games work well on it.
I love this.
The Xbox boss was full of praise for Valve's upcoming console. Let me just read Phil's tweet. He says, was at Valve Software this week talking with Scott, Eric, Gabe about Steam Deck. After having mine most of the week, I can say it's a really nice device. Games with me on the go, screen size, controls all great. Playing Halo and Age feels good. xCloud works well. Congrats, Steam Deck team. So Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, head of gaming at Microsoft, very big fan of the Steam Deck. It seems many of the Steam Deck reviews, by the way, have been very positive. But I think most interesting is the discussion of Xbox games running perfectly well on this, which I guess shouldn't surprise anyone, right? Because the similarities between Xbox as a platform and Windows as a platform, Microsoft has been slowly doing away with those differences. And Steam being, Windows based for the most part, makes sense that Xbox games could run on this. Here's my question to you guys. This is my tinfoil hat question. So there's the non-tinfoil hat question, which is, what do you guys think of being able to play Xbox games on a Steam Deck, and what does that do for Steam Deck's chances? But the tinfoil hat question is this hinting at Microsoft buying Valve? Do we finally see these two coming together? Because it just, all of a sudden, it makes sense to me, right? They've got a piece of complementary portable hardware, which you could brand Xbox in the long run, right? It's an Xbox portable. You've got big games, hear me out, like CS and Dota, and you've got good IP around that. And Microsoft likes buying publishers. They can afford the price tag, most likely. Is anyone surprised if we see Microsoft buying Steam?
Yeah, Jimmy, I want to react, but Jimmy, why would you be surprised?
I personally don't believe Steam has anything to gain from it.
Well, a big check.
A lot of money, yeah.
But I mean, like, right now they have the creative freedom and they could have, to do kind of whatever, and they already have the user base. They're not going to gain a bigger user base. I think maybe they could even hold on for 5 more years and get an even bigger check. You know what I mean? I think maybe further down the line, but at this point in time, I don't feel like it's enticing enough for Steam to want to, unless the check is that much bigger.
I mean, Jimmy raises a really good point. All the reasons that you outline, I completely agree, are reasons Microsoft would want to buy a Valve, and they make a ton of strategic sense. And I think it would be a brilliant acquisition, right? The question is, would Valve want to be bought? And money is certainly a great reason. But my sense of Valve is it's run like, it's more of a lifestyle company from Gabe. You know what I mean? And it's his vision, and he's what he's doing, and giving up that freedom, I think, would be a challenge. I also just think more broadly, if you are Valve and you're going to sell, right? Let's go real tinfoil hat here. So let's say, you've decided, yep, we're going to go. It's time. Let's cash out. Do you go to Microsoft, which has all the benefits you outlined, or do you go to Amazon? And hear me out, right? Because I think Amazon, bigger check. That's exactly, no, like literally, that was actually the first one I was going to make. Bigger check, way more money, right? Potentially way more autonomy, because Amazon just has less background and experience in games. So you would be a bigger piece of that. The Steam marketplace is a way better fit with the Amazon marketplace than it is with, say, the Xbox Live Store, right? Or whatever you buy games on through Xbox, right? And not only that, but if you think about which company likes to do hardware to promote their core offerings, particularly mobile hardware, hello, Kindle, right? I actually think the logical acquire here, as good as Microsoft is, Amazon is a better buyer and would pay more money. So I would be surprised to see a Microsoft acquisition, not because it doesn't make a ton of sense, but because I think an Amazon acquisition makes more sense. And if they're in the market to sell, I think that's where they would go.
Jimmy, B, Jeff, any thoughts on this?
I'm not so sure that Amazon would write the biggest check. I mean, they obviously could, write the biggest check, but Amazon, I just did a Google search. I mean, their biggest acquisition ever was 14 billion, which was Whole Foods. Like I think Valve is going to be worth literally 3 times that probably. So, you know, obviously Amazon can write that check. The question is there someone there with the stomach, with a new CEO? They haven't really bought into games. We've had this debate on the show numerous times about, is Amazon really serious about games? Well, if they buy Valve, then the answer is yes, and I would applaud that. I agree with everything you said, William, but practically speaking, I think there's a better fit with Microsoft, and I think there's a little bit more stomach to do a large acquisition. We've seen them do several large acquisitions in gaming, so we know they are willing to do that. They're already sort of pot committed, if you will.
Can I also make the point that Gabe is 58 years old, okay? And I'm not saying he's like...
He looks like he's 100.
That's not...
58.
Meaning that's not old, right? I'm not saying that's old. It's not
that's
old.
young. That's what I meant.
It's young, but
like
it's also... It's
so
getting to the point where,
older.
You know, an acquisition and retirement may be in the cards for him, or maybe something he's looking at. And
so you're saying this is
Phil
a George
Spencer
Lucas moment, right? Like George is, I'm never going to sell Star Wars. I'm never going to sell Star Wars until you get to the point where you start to wonder, what's my legacy? Who takes care of this when I'm no longer here?
Yes, and maybe Phil Spencer is that guy, right? Maybe there's a relationship there, and he's looking at Phil, going, he's the guy that I think can take, you know, what I've built to the next level. I don't know. I'm speculating.
Is there room in the conversation for someone like Apple to try and step in?
For sure, from a like, can they afford it standpoint? No question.
Like,
but it would be.
It makes sense. They have a massive app store, like for Steam and Apple. I mean,
the problem's the hardware, Jeff.
Right, the operating system itself. But do you think
Like,
that's
what do you mean
something
the
they maybe want to remedy in the future?
I think Apple's entire philosophy is the iPad's probably the ultimate gaming device, right? For their ecosystem, right? You take something like a Steam Deck. From an Apple perspective, that's a really clunky, complicated.
Oh, well, I assumed Apple.
Like,
I didn't really equate the Steam Deck with, like, I don't know if Apple would care about the Steam Deck. They might be
right,
like,
more so the games.
Well, I think all of the newfound excitement around Valve, frankly, is the Steam Deck, right? I don't think anyone's like all of a sudden excited about Valve because, you know, CS is still around, right? Like, yeah, it's a great piece of IP, no question. But I think a lot of the new hype now is around Steam Deck, and
I mean,
I'm
maybe
surprised, frankly, how good the reviews have been.
And I think that warrants another question too. Why did it take so long to develop a handheld PC system that was semi-decent? Why was Valve the company to release it and not any one of these other massive PC gaming hardware companies? Which it just blows my mind.
I mean, integration with the store, you realize the ecosystem
they have,
makes so
well, they
much
have like you could get like big
right?
picture mode on your, like, you know, whatever else. Like, it's the same thing, right?
But I also think tech had to catch up, right? You're talking about so much more overhead with PC games. And
the thing that impresses me, if I'm honest about Valve here, is their strategic commitment, right? Like, because they've had a lot of hardware stuff that didn't really work, right? Like, remember when,
didn't work,
most of it. Remember when Valve launched a home console, guys? Do we all remember that? They had a home console.
Link, I have it.
Yeah. Like, you know, it actually is, to their credit, it shows that they recognize, and again, we don't know how successful this new Steam Deck venture is going to be, right? But to their credit, they recognize that hardware is an important space they want to have a foothold in. And they kept trying to have a foothold in hardware. Good for those guys. You know, I hope this works because it's a good example of strategic deployment over time of capital, right? They think they need it. They keep trying. Doesn't hit. So they have different iterations and different expressions. And if this works, it would, it'd be great.
And to my knowledge, the Steam Deck is sold out till like mid next year. So.
yeah, you can't get one till the second half of next year if you.
We should give one away on the podcast. All right, we're doing it
from now.
Juice.
The lucky winner.
Disclaimer: we are not doing that.
Christian says Microsoft and Steam, mind blown. There you go. I would bet good money we see this. I have no insider information. I don't know, but I would.
Phil Spencer is sort of known for this, right? Too, like he kind of like likes putting these Easter eggs out there.
Yeah, but like he has no reason to be this complimentary either publicly about Steam Deck, right?
Unless I had a simpler read on this, which is just, you know, every other publisher of, major console manufacturers had a mobile expression, at least at some point in the market, right? Like there's been the PSP and everything that PlayStation's done. There's obviously the Switch right now. I viewed this as more, it doesn't have to be an acquisition, but is this a channel partnership that they want, right? Because you're right. Like I think it's a simpler thing. I think you'll see a partnership where Microsoft starts to promote this and push the games, and this becomes a hardware solution for them. I have a stupid question to ask, though, a really stupid question, which is if you're Microsoft and you can afford to buy Valve, right? You can also afford to buy Nintendo. Am I crazy? Am I doing that?
Well, that doesn't mean Nintendo is going to sell to you.
Yeah, but
you can afford to buy.
Yeah, but hold
pretty
on.
much anything you want if you're Microsoft.
Hear me out on the market. I'm just trying to do like the actual like math here. There's like
Valve was valued at $10 billion as of March 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably
based
3x
on Michael Pachter.
Yeah. Okay, but I agree that doesn't sound right. I think it's more than that with Jeff. But what's Nintendo's mark? Because aren't they public? I think
Nintendo's like 75 billion, maybe.
Okay,
total.
So
just off the top of my head, someone can look that up.
I mean, I think if Valve was to go for anything, I don't think it's much more than 20.
Why do you think that? You think Valve is worth less than Epic?
Why does Michael Pachter say 10 billion in March 2019 and 2 years later it's double?
Well, what has happened to the valuation of every single? Come on.
Okay.
What's happened to the valuation of every single gaming company in the last 2 years? I can make the case for 20. Can you make a case for more than 20? What was
30?
What
maybe?
was Fortnite? You're the person who said that Discord is worth 50 billion. You don't think Discord is worth more than? You don't think Valve is worth more than Discord?
No, I don't.
I think they make a hell of a lot more money than Discord.
I think that's
50
crazy.
times more money.
I think that's crazy that you don't think Valve is more valuable than
Valve.
Discord.
I don't. If you told me I could own either one, I would want to own Discord.
At the same level valuation.
Yeah, like here's a gift. You can have Valve or you can have Discord. Which one do you take?
Well, first of all,
I mean,
the joke is on you because
Depends
I'm
the
an
valuation.
economist. So opportunity cost, you're still net zero utility on the deal. But
I don't know.
Sorry, that was an econ joke.
I mean, isn't Valve like incredibly profitable? Like it's making
it's not public,
like hundreds
so
of millions of dollars a year in profit, whereas Discord literally has made less than like 100 million in revenue.
Yeah, but it's not about that. You know that. It's about growth.
Kind of about that.
No.
If I'm owning one of them, I like money. I like profit.
if one's growing at 200% a year or 100% a year, and the other one's growing at 8%, you're telling me you'd rather have the 8% business? Come on.
Well, if I think that one of them is never going to make money, then yeah. I mean.
I don't know. All right, let's move on from this. This was a great discussion, though. I enjoyed this. It's been one of my highlights of the week, this dialogue here.
Ramsey says, would that mean that they've basically given up on cloud gaming for the foreseeable future? I mean, Ramsey, it's a good question. In his tweet, he mentions that xCloud runs great on the Steam Deck. So I would think, if anything, if Phil is making the argument internally at Microsoft for why they need to buy this, I would bet good money that there's 2 or 3 slides in that pitch deck that say, xCloud, we could blow up xCloud with all of these devices out there.
I agree. I almost see it like to your point. It's almost the opposite of them giving up. It's almost like saying, hey, this device, xCloud, like this is why you need xCloud. You get this device, you get xCloud, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost the opposite.
Greg says Nintendo's market cap is 61 billion. Yeah, you're talking
I was pretty close.
Like 5 valves or 3 valves, depending on how much you want to say it increased in value over the last 2 years, right? We're guessing.
Sure. I think Valve is, I just rough and tough. I think probably Jeff's right. Call it 30 billion, right? So I think it's 2 valves.
30 billion seems to be the magic
that would be 30 billion to buy it,
now.
and Nintendo. In order to buy Nintendo, you probably got to pay 100 billion.
Yeah, premium. Yeah, fair point. Okay, I'm just excited to talk about big companies buying other big companies. Let's just
Speaking, I don't remember why this came up in my brain, but Star Wars. They're doing a lot with the IP now, that they haven't done before. They're experimenting. They did this thing where they presented the Star Wars world to 7 legendary Japanese animators, and they're putting out an anime for Star Wars that's going to be coming out soon. We were talking about IP and iterating on IP for the future.
Did this just like download into your head? Like,
it really did. I was like,
Jimmy,
whoa.
I thought you were going to William's point of is Valve really how many Star Wars? Is it 10 Star Wars or 8 Star Wars? Right? Is Valve really 8 Star Wars?
I think it was more the conversation of like, Gabe leaving a legacy. What do you do with it? And can it be improved upon down the road? And I think, it really can be. Where Star Wars, I think this is going to be a massive hit to bring even more of Gen Z, who's super into anime, into Star Wars.
Guys, I got it. Rockstar also made Red Dead Redemption. Did you guys know that?
Right.
Sorry, I meant to bring that up earlier.
I don't know why it just clicked.
Greg says, wouldn't Nintendo be a better fit for Disney or Apple? I think Nintendo would be a better fit for Disney or Apple, to be honest.
Culturally, that flows, Sorry.
But no, because I could see the iPad becoming the next version of the Switch, right? You add some really sleek sort of magnetically attached, like controllers to the side of an iPad Pro, and then you've got something kind of Apple-esque.
No, I'm thinking like the people that play Animal Crossing or Zelda are the same people that you could play that on your iPad pretty easily.
And there's a lot of crossover.
It's different than the Apex hardcore gamers that are going to be on the Steam Deck wanting that intense FPS action.
Nintendo makes original apps for the Apple Store as well. Like they have official Super Mario apps, official Animal Crossing apps. So it already.
Disney also has a culture of like, with the Pixar acquisition, the Marvel acquisition, they're pretty good with talent, with managing creatives, which I think would probably be important for Nintendo if they were looking to sell. To Jimmy's point, culturally, I think Disney has the infrastructure and the management to actually manage that kind of asset.
Let's move on, guys. Do we want to talk about... Actually, this is a quick story. We can do... Wade, by the way, says, I'm looking forward to the Star Wars anime series.
Shout out, Wade.
I just love the way Jimmy clearly felt he had to share that news with us. He's like, this is so cool. I have to find a way to work this in.
Seriously, I'm not very disillusioned with how the Star Wars movie
series. Is there a
series
trailer for it, Jimmy?
Yes, there is, and it's freaking fantastic.
Hold on, guys. I'm going to be...
Oh, you're
muted.
You've muted yourself.
Did he purposely mute himself?
Bye.
And he's gone.
I don't want to hear it. So
I'm just kidding.
All right, let's talk about Riot and League. This is going to be a quick story, and then we'll jump into something a bit meatier. But Riot moves League of Legends US Championship from Prudential Center due to COVID-19. So basically, Riot has announced that they can't, in good conscience, conduct a massive fan event at this time. The matches will instead be held at the LCS Arena. Jimmy B, you should be happy about this, in LA. So it went from being in our backyard to your backyard. What were you going to say, Jimmy B?
I'm still not going. I mean, I don't know what that does for me.
Well, seriously, why? I'm curious.
I assume they're not going to have fans. Why would it be different if they were in the Prudential Center?
Are they not going to have any fans at all?
There's no fans in the article.
Okay.
Actually.
I mean, I would assume that was the case. It's like we can't have 20,000, but we moved to a slightly smaller venue, and now it's okay.
14?
And does anyone think this is... So 2 questions. One, does it work without the fans, right? I guess there's a simple question there. 2, is this the perfect air cover Overwatch League needed to cancel their own? Is this going to be the reason Activision Blizzard pulls out of doing anything Overwatch League?
I hope there's no debate here because it's just a very simple yes and yes to me, right? Yes, it'll be easy to do without the fans. NBA nailed it last year with the bubble. And in fact, I think that the bubble format works even better in esports because this is naturally a digital audience. I don't know why there aren't more esports arenas in development that feature screens like that for the fans to buy that fan experience where your screen is on in the arena and they incorporate that to a greater extent. I haven't done one of those before, but I'm going to shot call that for the future where there's going to be esports arenas that have that digital audience component to it the way the NBA bubble did. So easy yes for me with that. And I'm sorry, part 2 was...
That's around Overwatch.
Air cover.
Oh yeah, the excuse for Overwatch. I mean, yeah, that's an even easier yes, I think, right?
Yeah, I think they try to use that as an excuse, but everyone knows there's no secret here. Y'all are a bunch of, I'm not going to say anything else, but yeah, I think they're going to try to use it as an excuse, and it's going to be very visible and clear that that's not why that's happening.
It's an interesting stance to take for Riot. And I don't want to get into a large COVID discussion because that's ridiculous, but there's just every other sport is playing right now. It's a bit odd to, why they felt the need to do this. I do wonder, tinfoil hat, is it just more profitable not to do it at the arena?
Absolutely.
I don't know whether that's the case, but it's weird when we're about to have massively full football stadiums and stuff, and
also
Jeff, to your
can't
point,
do it in
sorry,
good conscience. I don't really understand that per se.
Jimmy B, go ahead.
I was just going to say also, I mean, you got to think of what kind of ticket sales they saw over the last month when it was announced, which is probably nothing.
You think? I thought it was sold out.
I think it's sold out. Yeah,
I thought it was
in
sold
like
out.
the first hour. Yeah,
I have not seen it. I bet it's sold out. I just can't believe it.
I had friends that were trying to get tickets.
You're right. It was sold out.
Yeah, it was out.
Is there a question here of though, like, does Riot lead the way? In other words, what Riot does, everyone else in esports copies, or do we see people breaking from what Riot does?
I think Rainbow Six is a good example of breaking from what Riot does. They've had like really unique approaches to tournaments, broadcasts, and really everything in their esports catalog. But I think for a long time, especially given the success of the LCS in North America, they've led the way. They're the tier 1 production. Prior to them, it was ESL and Counter-Strike. And so it was ESL when we really didn't have these established leagues, but now Riot's taken over with the LCS in North America at least.
So you feel that Riot still has this leadership position where if they have an in-person event, everyone else will have. If they cancel an in-person event, everyone else cancels. Like, is this the kind of...
I think it's because their events are almost the ones that are guaranteed to pretty much sell out. Like, I don't know of any other esport that gets... Maybe Rocket League as well, right? Like, if Rocket League and Riot Games, like, I think those two are great barometers to be using to see if you should be throwing an event in esports at this time.
Well, so it's really interesting because the reason I assumed it had a low turnout wasn't obviously League or Riot. It was more so the location, which was heavily affected by COVID, right? New York and Jersey with these urbanized areas where there was massive exodus, and then the resurgence of Delta variant and these newer concerns with COVID. So, I mean, this really changes everything. So I'm sorry, the question being what if Riot pulls out of something, even though they're sold out, do we see others doing the same? I don't think other developers can afford or can really afford to do that, right? Like if you are, I mean, there's one Riot, right? And there's one Activision, and let's throw Epic up there too, right? If you're not one of those three and you have a sold out title with 100,000 seat or a 50,000 seat arena, why would you want to cancel that? It's a harder thing for you to stomach than Riot. So that's my take on it. Obviously, there's trends and there's an appropriate brand presence and way to conduct yourself, social consciousness, right, and health issues. But you're a for-profit business. You have a very hot title, and as we see with Overwatch, these things come and go. And if you have a sold-out event at an arena, especially right now when people are scared to get out of their homes, still 2 years into this, I don't know why you would cancel it. That's a big risk to me, to your brand.
Well, we're assuming that the other events are sold out. I think the assumption would probably be that they maybe haven't gone on sale yet and they cancel preemptively,
right,
knowing that maybe they wouldn't sell out and using this as an excuse ahead of time. But I agree with your point. If they are sold out, yeah, they probably would go.
So maybe I bent that to make my argument a little bit. But, yeah.
In your hypothetical world, yes, I think I agree with
you. Guys, before we move on, I just want a quick word. The Business of Esports, for most of you who don't know, this live stream specifically is supported by YouGov. They're a leading international research firm. They supply the best data on gamers, games, and esports fans around the world. Definitely go show them some love. They have a website, yougov.com/gaming-esports. I will put the link in the chat. Go show them some love. There's a lot of free data there. Reach out to them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, wherever you find them. If you need data, if you're selling anything into the gaming audience, if you're working in or around gaming, highly recommend reaching out to them, because some of even the free reports that are on this website are amazingly valuable. I will just say, there was one stat I saw this week. I will just mention it. We're not going to do a full insight segment this week, but there was one specific stat that I saw this week, which was gaming influencers are the most followed influencer type among U.S. teens. So if you look at U.S. teens aged 13 to 17 who follow influencers, 58% of U.S. teens 13 to 17 follow gaming influencers. Compare that to 45% who follow celebrity influencers, and only 34% who follow fashion influencers. So
Incredible.
teens are following gaming influencers more than literally any other kind of influencer on the planet. Again, if you're a brand looking to make, media buying decisions, things like that, and you're trying to decide on an influencer strategy, it's this kind of data that becomes incredibly actionable, incredibly valuable. And so highly recommend going to check out yougov.com/gaming-esports. They're incredible supporters of the live stream, and we really appreciate it.
It reminds me again of Clinton Sparks' episode, right? Gaming being the new nexus of pop culture, literally here overtaking hip hop in terms of Gen Z and millennials and who they care to follow, right? I mean, 2%, that's only going to grow, I think, right? Next 5 years, what are we going to see with this?
I mean, the fact that 13 to 17 already follow gaming influencers more than music, right? Is insane.
The 2% I meant was the difference, right? 58 to
between
56%, right? So I just think that gap is going to grow. Yeah.
Wade said I couldn't let Jimmy be that lonely/scorned. Sorry, I needed to get caught up on that.
I appreciate you, Wade.
All right, guys, let's move on. We have one more. We have a couple more stories, a couple more good stories here. Can we talk about mobile games? Because
if you want to,
I do, and I'll tell you why. I rarely want to talk about mobile games, but I definitely want to talk about them when I see this headline. 7 mobile games now make over $100 million every month.
Wow.
Which is just
that is
an
has the profit converted.
There's a reason we spell profit with an F.
Wow.
So,
this is the new gospel.
This is the new gospel.
That is staggering.
So I didn't scroll down because
how many can we name?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. How many can you guys name?
Candy Crush, Roblox.
7 games, okay?
Okay, go.
So Candy Crush, you got 1, okay?
Roblox, Honor of Kings.
Roblox 2. Honor of Kings, no.
I wouldn't put Honor of Kings in there. I'll put Clash Royale
Clash Royale.
Like one of those Supercell titles, Clash of Clans.
Clash of Clans, so that's 3.
Like Wordscapes, Gardenscapes, any of the scapes.
Homescapes, 4.
I feel like this is a show.
Is there a Fortnite? No Fortnite.
No,
not with that Apple, huh?
No.
Do we get like a developer or something?
No. Wait.
Greg said
one of the ones on this list had an event just recently in New York, and I got a
skateboard. Free Fire.
Yeah. Free Fire.
What about slots?
Minecraft?
There's got to be a
Minecraft
slots
one?
game up there.
Scrabble.
No, there's probably no slots games that big.
I don't know
Solitaire.
what this game is. There's one called Coin Master.
Oh, that is a
Slots.
social casino.
So
Gotta
that's
be
6. And the one you guys are the two you missed. I miscounted, I think.
Oh.
The 2 you missed, Pokemon Go
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Genshin
Pokemon Go.
Impact.
Oh yeah.
Genshin Impact is making $100 million a month.
But yeah, that game's some weebs all around.
So the list, just to be clear: Pokemon Go, Roblox, Candy Crush, Garena Free Fire, Genshin Impact, Homescapes, Coin Master, and Clash of Clans.
Imagine if you went back in time to like 2017, because the summer of 2016 was when Pokemon Go sort of, was the Fortnite of its time, took off. But then it died, right? Like in 2017, everyone was like, oh, remember Pokemon Go? If you told someone in 2017, hey, it's going to be 2021, we're going to be in the middle of a global pandemic where people like literally don't leave their house, and Pokemon Go is going to be is going to make $100 million a month.
Well,
I'd be like, you're insane. Literally insane.
Jeff, that could blow your mind. Or you could go back in 2017 and say, did you know there was going to be a Star Wars anime?
That is, I could blow my mind. If I went back to 2017, I could blow my mind with a lot of things.
I just want to make one last point. In 2019, only 2 games made over $100 million a month.
Wow,
which is interesting. The growth in mobile just in the last 2 years. That now there are 7 games making $100 million a month.
Keep in mind, they might have all been at 99.99 previously, but still, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Greg guessed COD. COD was not on there. Not making $100 million a month.
COD would be on there if you probably include console, but specific.
This is
COD
just mobile.
Yeah, mobile only.
And Minecraft was not on there. Was not doing $100 million a month. according to this article at least. So, and they were pulling this data directly from App Annie, which looks at like mobile revenue and mobile downloads and things. So, seems to be quite reliable data, I think. Now,
I can't believe CoinMaster 100 million. I mean, they're it's like a one game studio. I'm pretty sure it's a company called Moon Active in Israel. Someone's got to buy them.
Someone's going to buy them if they're doing 100 million a month.
They don't need to get bought at that point.
Yeah. What's interesting, just a couple other stats from this article. There's now over 1 billion weekly game downloads on iOS and Google Play. So 1 billion weekly game downloads.
Jeez.
Weekly.
Whoa.
And more than 1.7 billion in weekly spend on mobile games. This is per week, just on iOS and Google Play. And 5 billion hours spent playing.
So we're going to go develop some mobile apps after this. I don't know what you guys are doing.
So everyone throw all your PCs away.
So just to give you guys an idea, so this is, let's call it 2 billion a week being spent on mobile games, right? So 52 weeks in a year. Just to give you an idea, if mobile games were a country, they would be one of the 50 largest countries in the world, close to top 50 by GDP. We're talking like this is the same GDP level as like New Zealand, right? Like we're like it's just, that's insane to me. I'm sorry. Like that's crazy.
So if people had the choice between giving up their mobile games or blowing up New Zealand, you're saying people would choose them.
Not the mobile gamers in New Zealand.
Not the Lord of the Rings. No.
All right, let's move on. That was kind of a fun one. The numbers are staggering. Like
I just can't believe that GDP comparison. That's crazy. It's like basically like one of the world's largest countries doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Yep. We should make a game with Paul's head on like a Temple Run
it's
character.
Not anything like that, but
thanks, Jeff.
How does it mean that the country doesn't exist? Where'd you get that from?
Thanks,
We're just
Jeff.
now 51.
Can we talk about? I don't know. Hang on. This is not. Can we talk about Allied Esports? Allied Esports in the news, reporting earnings. And I think there's two articles here which I think are worth mentioning back to back. The first being esports arena operators Allied Esports lose $3 million in the second quarter of 2021. They've this $3 million loss. But it's the second article that I think is interesting, which is Allied Esports Entertainment explores options, including HyperX Arena sale. Now, we know this, right? Like we know they've been trying to sell these assets. I want to revisit this because, I've seen Allied in the news. Like they're still doing stuff on the esports side. Like they're still making moves. They're still operating the business. Any thoughts on, if you're in their shoes, what are your good options at this point? Why hasn't something happened for these assets? If anyone has sort of theories on this, ideas.
I think what they're doing the right thing. I mean, they have to continue to execute, and I think they've made some good moves. Some of the announcements in terms of some of the deals they're making with the truck to go to. I think this might not have been what you pulled up, but they're doing an activation with NASCAR. I think they're building out some stuff on the content side, and the $3 million loss I think is pretty significantly lower than some of the losses in the past. So they've obviously done a pretty good job with cost cutting. In terms of the timing and stuff like that, I think these processes just take some time often. But yeah, I think the management team there is definitely moving in the right direction.
Who do we think the big HyperX Arena goes to, guys? Any thoughts? Who might be a logical buyer? Because that's a kind of an unique asset, right? But it's also like a tough asset, right? It's a big arena.
I think like this is for the whole pyramid.
No, that's the whole.
This
that's the whole
for the
entire,
arena inside of the thing, right?
Inside the laser, yeah.
Never mind. I was gonna say for the Mandalay Bay, like I know Evo historically throws events there, and Evo is now run by Sony, and so there's a potential for a crossover there. But already Sony announced that later in October they're going to be doing an in-person event, still in Vegas, but no longer at the Mandalay Bay. So never mind.
I mean, Sony's an interesting thought. The problem is Sony doesn't do that much content today.
I think it would be more like a Riot or an Activision.
Right.
But I don't
Like
think Activision would spend that kind of
who could
money.
fill that
Space.
with gaming?
It's like, what would you? I don't
Tournaments.
understand. The space itself.
Jack won JBP. That's a good point with Entain.
Entain. I mean, look,
they made a big move into
story
esports betting.
Yeah.
That one we can talk about next probably. But they made a big move buying Unicorn, and they talked on their recent investor day, which I have the transcript here. I'm in the middle of reading about how they're investing, I think $50 or something million into esports and esports betting, which is great for the space. I mean, it's a big. Entain is one of the biggest online gambling companies in the world. So the fact that they're sort of investing in this and buying into it really validates the whole space. They also have a big partnership with MGM, which I believe owns the Pyramid, correct? Is it MGM?
Owns the Luxor, yes.
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure.
it's not that crazy of a thought.
I mean, I think the question boils down to who can fill that location enough for it to be profitable on its own, right? Or create content around it so it can be profitable. Other than Riot, maybe Activision, maybe Epic, right? Like Epic might be able to do something creative that straddles digital and real life, something like that. I don't know.
What I would do is I would go to a team or a few teams, and I would get like the Britney Spears, Jerry Seinfeld type of monthly or 3-month contracts to have a gamer there live playing for fans, and you can sell tickets.
Not a bad idea.
And have a big name streamer that sells out the way you have a Magic show or something else. Include some type of interactivity with the fan. Bring someone on stage to run duos.
Streams live from there every night.
Some of these guys in their Discords, you can pay in their Discords to play with them. A lot of them sell that ability. So what about playing with them live in person, right, on a Vegas stadium in front of 10,000, 20,000 people? That's how I would use the space if I was LA.
For streamers,
yeah, like residency. That was the word. And for streamers, the way they do it for musicians and comedy acts, etc.
I think it is interesting. Any other thoughts on this, guys? Before we move on. No. Okay. Let's. I think we have one last story here. And so we can do Nintendo or we can do Atari. Which one do you guys want to do?
Nintendo.
Atari. Okay, do Nintendo.
Both.
Okay, let's talk about Nintendo. The Switch is the first console to sweep Japan's game sales chart in 33 years. Even the PlayStation couldn't stop Nintendo from achieving the feat. So as of the week of August 8th, every game on Famitsu's weekly top 30 chart was a Switch title, ranging from Super Mario Maker 2 in 30th place to Minecraft at the top. It's the first time a platform has swept that chart since November 1988, when Nintendo's own Famicom dominated the list. So this is, just to be clear, this is in Japan, right? So this is not globally or in the US. This is what people are playing in Japan. Should any of us be surprised that Nintendo is, all 30 spots on this top 30 list? I mean, William, give me the other side of the following statement. Like, this is not that exciting, is it?
I actually agree. Like, that's almost
really?
why I didn't want to do this story. Like, sorry. Like first of all, I mean, let's be clear. It's a big achievement. It's hard to do, right? Like, this is exciting, right? But the Switch is already doing well as a console, and we know that. And what you have to remember about Japan is culturally, it's a different society because of the prevalence of public transport and commuting. There's just there's a stronger need for games to be and gaming to be mobile there than pretty much anybody anywhere else because of the train culture that's present in the country. So it gives a very unique advantage to platforms like the Switch and mobile gaming in general. The fact that, like, in a country that is heavily predisposed to mobile gaming, that, by the way, because no apps are in this listing, right? If you exclude all apps, if the only mobile gaming you are going to show is the only mobile gaming system available to your country from a domestic publisher, yeah, it's significant. It shows the Switch is doing super well. But sweeping this, first of all, and I'm not trying to knock Famitsu or sorry, the Famitsu listing, but like it's just
Yep.
that used to be a very significant index. Like I think it was getting 40 out of 40 in their reviews. That used to be like an amazing gold mark for role-playing games in particular, but really the relevance of this is just less significant. So is the Switch doing super, super well in Japan? Yes. Is it doing better than we probably realized? Yeah, that's what this data point suggests. But does that change how the games market is evolving globally? No, I don't think so. And I think it's a particularly skewed view because, as I said, it's really talking about the market for mobile gaming, and you're not including cell phone games.
Let's tie it to the previous story. Does Steam Deck make a dent in Japan, or will Japan be Nintendo sort of diehard through and through forever?
Yeah, that's a more interesting question, just because Steam is technically a mobile offering. I actually could see the Steam Deck doing well in Japan. Funnily enough, I think you're going to have two issues for it. One is just general availability. When can it do well in Japan? Because it's not going to be a primary sales market for it in the beginning, right? And they're sold out. I think the second piece is just how much is the idea of PC games on a mobile device compatible with a mobile culture? Because again, these are games that you like. Halo isn't exactly designed for levels that you can play jostled around on a train in 5-minute increments. Like I think there's a question of how well the content library holds up. Whereas if you play something like any of the Mario games, like I think it's no accident that what was the big Mario game that just got re-released? What was it? For Switch, it was the big release this year. Like I can't remember the name, but there's no accident you can beat those levels in 5 minutes, right? They're almost designed like mobile experiences because you want to have a content offering that's compatible with a commuting society. So yeah, it'll do well. It'll do better in Japan than other things, but no, I don't think it's going to light the world on fire over there.
Anyone have any other thoughts? If not, I will move on to our last story. And by the way, SK, hello. Good to have you in here. Let's talk about, let me move on to the last story here, because I think I want to get to this. It's a story out of India, and this is a market that we've seen explode. We've talked about it a few times on the live stream, on the podcast. The headline here, gaming platform Zupi raises $30 million at over $500 million valuation. Again, in this theme of just astronomical numbers around mobile. What they do, for those, because I didn't know, I actually never even heard of Zupi before this article. They're a skill-based real money gaming platform. So I think it's fair to say they're like Skills or a Skills competitor. They raised $30 million as part of their Series B funding round, co-led, and these are not like co-led by Silicon Valley-based Westcap Group, no slouch in the venture world, and Tamales Bay Capital. The current valuation, according to the company, has been raised at a valuation of $500 million, up 5-fold since January this year. So just to be clear, in January of 2021, they raised $10 million at a valuation of $100 million. In August, they're raising it at a $500 million valuation. Now, they're saying the money's going to go to build new games and build their platform and the whole bit. But primarily, it's trivia quiz tournaments and things like that, like typical skills style, casual games, skill-based games that you can
They
play.
have a user base of 10 million people.
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. Like,
Yes.
We're reading this like, what is this? I've never heard of this guy. Well, 10 million people.
10, but it's again,
a lot of people.
What was what was just mind-blowing to me is January to August, 100 million to 500 million valuation. That is a lot of value creation in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Is this just the nature of the Indian market in your minds, guys? Is it just because the user base numbers are so big? Is it excitement about skill-based, real money kind of gaming? What do we attribute this to? I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. Jeff, you might have some specific thoughts on this.
No more than anyone else. I think it's both. It's everything we've talked about tonight. I mean, it's mobile, massive, skill-based gaming. I think that's something that a lot of people are getting excited about. Entain, to go back to that, I mean, they bought Unicorn. They talked a lot about the potential for skill-based gaming. That's something Unicorn has sort of pioneered and is big on. So trends that people are paying attention to, and then you just have growth in emerging markets. I mean, there's the fact that this thing that we've never even heard of, this company has 10 million users, just shows how many people there are in places like India and China. It feels like every week we do a story of something in an emerging market where it's like, I've never heard of this, and then it's got tens of millions of users, and that just shows our ignorance to some extent, and then also just how much opportunity there is in these markets.
Can I just ask one thing specific to Skills? Because Skills, gets all the press, at least in the US, around this kind of gaming. Skills, the games that Skills offers, they do have a platform where developers can create for them, right? But fundamentally, all the games on Skills, for the most part, are very simple, casual games, right? It sounds like Zoopy has similarly simple kind of casual games that people can play for money against each other. Does the differentiator between these companies eventually just become geography? Because the games don't seem to be that differentiated, right? It's not
I think in that point, it says in the Zoopy article that they're doing more trivia-based games, whereas Skills, if I'm remembering correctly, does more like bowling and other more.
But they're all the same.
I think their biggest game is
Jimmy,
like Solitaire.
Something like that, right? And it seemed like Zoopy was taking a more social approach to the solution, which may be their whole point with this platform. But I think you bring up a good point with Skills and like geography, in that one Skills I don't think was taken to nearly as well as Zoopy may have been.
Well, keep in mind, Skills got even today, even after
they're worth
the
like $4 billion.
Yeah, they're worth
it just blows my mind because it's a. I think, Jeff, you mentioned it. It's one, just our ignorance, and two, just like there's so much value in these markets because, personally, I don't know anybody that's ever played a skill-based game, nor have I heard of anyone that's ever participated in it. But for it to have this value and this massive player base, I think, right, is just like a token of our ignorance. Like, I couldn't believe that. It blows my mind.
Does the only differentiator become geography? There's skills in the US. You have some big player in China. You have some big player in India. Like, is this sort of how this market plays out in your minds, guys? Or does someone at some point differentiate from a just game perspective, right? Like, I say this somewhat facetiously because it's like these are gaming companies that no one really seems to talk much about the games, and it feels almost like the games don't really matter. Is that fair, or I don't know? No, anyone agree? Disagree?
I don't really know, because I think like the biggest thing is what does the product look like for Zoopy, right? Like, are they approaching it in the same exact manner? Because if they are approaching it with a much more social aspect to it, it might make more sense as to why it's exploded so exponentially from the first 6 months of the year. But apart from the product itself, then I guess it really just comes down to where you are located. Because if we don't know what the actual draw is, then I think that's the only thing that I can identify off the top of my head. But
I will say, and I'll wrap up the story on this, congratulations to Matrix Partners India. Matrix is a very well-known venture capital fund. They have obviously a separate fund in India for India, but whom 5x'd their investment in 8 months. That's got to go down as...
Was there any revenue numbers in that article, or just the player number? Was there anything around top line or...
I don't think they had specific to Zoopy. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
They had sort of more industry numbers, but nothing specific to Zoopy. What they're saying is the Indian online gaming market, they think will attract, will get to 657 million users by the end of this year, compared to 433 million from the beginning of this year. I mean, that just seems like a massive amount of growth in 1 year. So I don't know where this data is coming from, but that's a lot.
Is that YouGov? I only trust stuff if it's YouGov.
It's not YouGov.
Or William. YouGov or William. Those are my two sources. That's all I got.
The two most reputable data sources in all of esports.
Yeah, that's basically the only place I get any news. Either that or Jimmy, but only if it relates to anime.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap this up. Did anyone play anything?
What about Atari? What was the Atari one? We got to at least.
You want to do the Atari story?
Well, now we did everything else. We might as well at least hear. I'm curious. I didn't hear the news, so I want to at least know what it is.
They just didn't
I'll
do
juice.
well,
I'll juice on it real quick. You guys can.
They didn't. Right.
Everyone else can log off.
Atari underperformed basically. Right. They lost some money. Was that right?
Yeah. So
Jeff. No. Let's do a new segment called
Legendary Gaming Company Atari reports losses. They lost $6 million last year.
Pause. Yeah. We're gonna do a new segment for the podcast called The Squeeze, which is Jeff the Juice is gonna squeeze on a negative news story. Jeff,
I don't want to squeeze on Atari. I don't want to squeeze on them.
What's the squeeze?
Too good of a brand.
Hold on, everyone.
I don't know.
Time out. Here. Welcome to the Juice Bar. What
We're really playing this out here.
What are we playing this week, guys? What are we playing this week?
Paul's fed up with it.
Jimmy B.
I shared in our podcast, I'm loving Apex. Until they remaster Knights of the Old Republic, which case I will be taking 5 sick days. Letting you know now. I'm loving Apex. It's been such a lifesaver for the hell that was Warzone. I love it. I can't believe it's taken me this long to come around, honestly.
You can definitely expect a remaster because all the gaming companies are going to become fat and lazy and no one will make games anymore, new games anymore.
I think we covered it. They announced it in April, actually. So I think they are. So, yeah.
Jeff? I know you did a lot of.
I didn't even hear the question. Just skip me.
What are you playing? It's on the screen.
I didn't play anything.
You juiced yourself.
Juice yourself.
Congrats. You juiced yourself.
I didn't play anything.
Jimmy M.
More Valorante. I hit Immortal, I think 2 weeks ago. And so Immortal is about 9,000 people. And now I'm 4,000, position 4,000. So we're working our way up.
Yeah, Jimmy, Immortal is trash. Come to Iron 2, where the real competition is.
I mean, honestly, they've done videos where they take professional players and put them in like Immortal or like Silver lobbies, and they'll die a lot just because they have no idea what's happening in the game anymore. It's so different.
What you guys watching are playing, first of all. Second of all, Jimmy M, we have some fun man on the street content coming from Jimmy M. I'm curious, of all the people you asked about games that were playing, was there any was there one game you heard most often?
No, to be honest. Like Grand Theft Auto was a very popular answer. Spider-Man was as well. Lots of PlayStation 4 games. I got way more Valorant and Counter-Strike than I expected, which I expected none of, and we got approximately 2 of each. But that's okay. But yeah. Lots of gamers in New York. Lots of people. We got a Sonic. Some guy really didn't want to be on video, and he was like running away from us. And he was like, "But I played Sonic," and I was like, "That works, great,
That works.
Wonderful." Yeah,
surprised Spider-Man. That's like
doesn't sound like he signed the release.
Not an older
he did
game.
not sign it. Spider-Man, yeah, the PS4 one.
That episode may never see the light of day.
Yeah, that may never see the light of day.
Just blur his face. It's fine.
William, what were you playing this week?
Oh my gosh. I had very little time, so these are all sort of micro play sessions, but I mentioned I beat Streets of Rage 4, which I strongly recommend. Great game. Still working my way through, because again, I don't have as much time to dedicate to gaming. Still working my way through the new Ratchet and Clank. Went back to Ghost of Tsushima to get ready for the release of the new DLC. This I think it's actually tomorrow it comes out, which will be pretty great. So yeah, and I obviously have actually been playing some Valorant, as I do Omen and Yoru. Those are my two mains. I'm excellent as both of them because I use none of their abilities, which is just what all the pros do. So,
I was gonna say one of those is better than the other, but I won't say which.
Well, I'll tell you which one's better for me, Jimmy. And I'm gonna level with you. It's Omen because that teleport is dope. Anyway,
Omen's great.
Guys, just a couple of reminders. First of all, thank you for all for coming, participating. Even if you lurked, thank you. Tell your friends about the live stream. We do this every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely go check out yougov.com/gaming-esports. And stay tuned for the podcast tomorrow. It drops every Thursday, as you guys know, as longtime fans know. And it's a really fun episode talking about music and gaming and all kinds of sort of fun things. And also, don't forget, go buy William's book, The Book of Esports. It's now in Spanish. That's the
now
big
in
news.
Spanish language
Libro
edition.
de los Esports. It's if you're a Spanish speaker,
more language editions. I don't know, I probably shouldn't say it, but Spanish languages, and it's great. It's doing very well. So if you prefer to read in Spanish, by all means, I'm told it has an excellent Spanish translation. So,
and as always, guys, we appreciate you coming. We will see you all next week.